This is Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Good morning, my friends. Welcome to Enjoy Incredible Health with me, your host, Dr. David Vitko. I'm a chiropractic physician with 34 years of practice experience in Columbiana, Ohio, and we are still there to serve your health needs. And so if you decide you want to give me a call and come in for a consult, my number is 330-482-9550. That's 482-9550. And we're going to give you the studio number here shortly because I'm going to ask you that if you have a story about prescription drug prices or side effects of prescription drugs, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show today in the second half. But for the first half, I'm going to go into my little monologue and give you some information that I think can be helpful and a little bit motivating. That's what this show really is all about. The premise of the show is that I believe that we can be substantially healthier, and I think that's possible for everyone across the board. We simply need to feed our body what it needs to thrive and learn to avoid the food and drink that undermines our health. And that's not something you can do overnight. Trust me on this. I've been working at it really over years' time, and I found little tricks that help, and that's what I share with the patients that go through my health restoration program and try to help them accelerate their learning a little bit. It's taken me years to get to the point of health where I'm at, and I'll go into that in a little bit here. But it is a learning process. And if you think that you can race to the end and race to that point at which everything's hunky-dory and nothing will ever change and you can eat whatever you want and your health will be fantastic, that's a myth. And that's not going to happen. You have to work at it every day. But the cool thing is, the really great thing is that it becomes habit to you after a while. For instance, last night, it was the first chance we've had to have a fire outside. Thank God Al Gore's not president. They probably would have had the black helicopters coming out after us. But we actually had a little campfire and sat outside with some friends, and Chris and Chuck from Columbiana and their son Tom and daughter and son-in-law, Jenny and Sam and the kids, and we had just a great time. Nice time to sit around the family, around the fire. Isn't it funny that as far as mankind has come with our scientific knowledge and our ability to do different things, it's still really nice to sit around the fire and have a conversation, with all the texts and emails and everything going on. Just to sit around and have a conversation. And it was a great time, and we thank Chris and Chuck for that opportunity last night to get together again. And, it's first time of the year. Now, the weather's beautiful, finally. Hopefully it'll stay for a while. Geez, I thought the monsoons would never end here in northeast Ohio and western Pennsylvania, but they seem to have come to an end, and it seems like summer is headed our way. So let's try to get out and enjoy it today a little bit. So getting back to my point, last night sitting around the fire, typically I would cook a couple of hot dogs or some sausage or something and, drink a couple beers. And I'll admit, I still drank a couple of beers last night. I like to kick back and relax a little bit. But I was not drawn to the hot dogs or snack foods at all last night, which is a total change for me. And, it's taken me years to get to this point, and it's not like I struggled and said, oh, no, I can't have this or I can't have that. It's just, the urge just wasn't there. And you have to work to get to that point. For some people, I know people for which that comes natural, and they have no problem with it at all, and that's great. I think a lot of it has to do with the psychology of our upbringing and our, how we've lived over the years and things like that. And, as you just have to give it time to grow. And if you know the path that you need to head down, then that takes away a lot of the variables in it, because when you know the path, then you're drawn to that, even if in the beginning, even if you have this calling, you've got a hot dog calling to you, or you have some chips or some sodas or something calling to you. In the beginning, you have to fight that a little bit. But after a while, it becomes second nature, and you go, yeah, that's just not who I am. That's not what I'm interested in. And I don't care for the taste. I don't care for what that does to me health-wise. This all goes on subconsciously, behind the scene after a while. And when you get into that groove, you enjoy the friendship and the discussion, and you just enjoy being around people more than the food that used to draw you to that. So I'm not putting myself up on some high horse or anything. I'm just telling you that that's what's possible. And I want to share that with you because I know I've experienced all of this. And maybe you're a step ahead of me in that. I don't know. But we all need to move more that direction. I was just reading some statistics about the obesity and overweight rates in the United States are incredible. I mean, it's like 70% of Americans are overweight, 35% obese. We can't keep going that route. It's no wonder medicine can't keep up. It's no wonder the costs of medicine go up because the pharmaceutical companies just keep gouging us just to make us feel halfway healthy, which is not even true. It's not real health, which we'll get into here in a little bit too. But so it's not a pipe dream. I believe that, we can have this higher level of health. And it's not based on just my fantasy. It's not based on the fantasies of some other authors who have written books and say, you can be much healthier. These people all have extensive experience, and many of them are medical physicians or chiropractors or naturopaths, people who have seen it in themselves and in patients. And that's where I come from on this. It's not a pipe dream. So the belief is based on my own experience and seeing dramatic improvement in my patients who've made the effort to recover their good health. It's not something that I've imagined. It's something solid. And we can put numbers on it because I see these patients' blood work before and after. And, if the blood parameters that medicine says are good are accurate, then I'm telling you that these people are becoming substantially healthier just by changing what they eat. And, isn't that just so powerful? Because that goes to the root of the health problem, not what prescription drugs do or even over-the-counter drugs in covering up symptoms. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you need those things for a crutch to get you through, and I understand that as much as anybody. And it's okay to use a crutch. It's okay to, do what your family doctor says and, use this medication, but also work on the back end of it to get healthier so you can get past that health issue to fix it. And I'm telling you that what you eat is the root cause of 90% of disease, 90% of illness. And that has deep roots. So it sounds simple, right? Yeah, maybe too simple, eh? As our Canadian friends might say. I would not believe it myself had I not seen it with my own eyes. I'm not one of these guys that buys into something. As a matter of fact, I'm probably one of the world's biggest skeptics. You have to prove things to me, or more importantly, I have to prove it to myself. So I've heard all these stories about how this supplement does this and that drug does that. And I'll tell you, folks, most of it's BS. It comes down to fixing your own habits and giving your body enough time to fix itself. And that power is there. Thank God that we have that power to heal ourselves. It is incredibly strong. So the changes are profound and are available to anyone willing to make the changes in habit and stick with them until health can blossom fully enough to be noticed. Because it's a gradual process. And you may not notice the changes right away. But over time, they become apparent. You go, hey, I used to not be able to do this. I used to not be able to do that. I have this craving lately to exercise. And even on days when I feel tired at the end of a long day in the office, I'll work 10, 12 hours in my office oftentimes. And at the end of the day, I sometimes have to push myself to exercise. But lately, I've had this urge to exercise. And it's a strong urge, and that's a good thing when you get to that point. That means your health is getting to the point where at 60 years of age, how many 60-year-olds out there are really drawn to exercise? I'm sure there's a few, but you know, that comes from being a little bit healthier, or a lot healthier in many ways. So I've told you my story before. High cholesterol, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, chronic kidney stones, to the tune of 17 stones from the time I was 24 until I turned 50. 17. Imagine, if you've ever had one kidney stone, you know how excruciating that is. Now imagine knowing that every year and a half, every 2 years, you're going to have another stone. Life didn't look too bright at that point. But I've always had this feeling in the back of my mind that as someone who people look to for health information, that I was given these problems for a reason so that I could empathize with patients and I could say, yeah, I know what that feels like, and here's what you need to do because I've been down that path, and here's what you need to do to fix that, not to cover it up, to fix it. I don't want you to live with something like high blood pressure, chronic kidney stones, or diabetes. I want you to fix it because we know those things are fixable at this point. No doctor could tell me how to stop my kidney stones. All due respect to those guys. I had some great urologists. But nobody said, hey, do this, this, and this, and you will fix your stones. I'm telling you that there is a way to fix your kidney stones if you have chronic kidney stones. And this is part of the kidney stone belt. From Michigan down through Ohio, through the Appalachians, down to northern Florida is a kidney stone belt. There are more kidney stones in that area than anywhere else. And, you know, you can say, well, maybe it's in the water, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's our heritage. You know, there's a lot of similar heritage in through that area. No, I think it's our diet that we have in common. You know, it's I think people tend to eat fattier and more food than we need, and that's obvious by the fact that Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, those are some of the most obese states in the country, too. So there's no getting around that. But fixing your diet will fix kidney stones. It did mine. Oh, the pain and suffering and money I could have saved had I known what I know now much sooner. It's almost sick, and it kind of makes me sick to think of the money we spent and the time I lost in my life and the time I was unable to, you know, be a better father and a better husband because I was in so much pain. And some of these stones I carried for a year before I passed them. And I didn't have, you know, a lot of extra money to say, well, let's just go get it removed. I had 3 removed out of 17, and it wasn't cheap, even with insurance. So, you know, I suffered through a lot of them. Part of it was my stubbornness. It's in my heritage, you know, old stubborn Croatian. But I worked through it, and I figured out what fixes it. And, you know, lo and behold, that also taught me what fixes other things. You know, my total cholesterol was over 270. Now, since I've changed my diet and stuck with it, it runs around 160 to 170, which is way healthier and probably the healthy range, at least for me. I think that varies a little bit in everybody, but certainly 270 was way too high. And if your cholesterol's, you know, in the high 200s, I can promise you that you can lower that by changing your diet. Now, it may not come down even under 200. I think 200 as the normal high for cholesterol, total cholesterol, I think is arbitrary. I think it varies a little bit according to heritage, and it also varies more specifically by how well your liver functions. The key to fat metabolism in the body is a healthy, well-functioning liver. And we can affect that. If you've been told you have, you know, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or even alcoholic fatty liver disease, there's things you can do to improve that. The liver is the most resilient organ in the human body. As I've said before, you can cut 2/3 of it away and it'll grow back. How's that for miraculous? You know, that's one of those things that's built into us. It's undeniably miraculous. And it also speaks to how important the liver is. Yeah, the liver is your main blood filter in your body. You know, the kidneys are also filters. But the liver is the one that handles all the fat metabolism. And, you know, that's one of the reasons we have high cholesterol in this country. From a very young age, we eat too many sweets and too many saturated animal fats, and as we get a little older, too much alcohol regularly, all contribute to the buildup of fat in your liver. And it happens quietly, stealthily, behind the scenes. You don't even know what's going on until one day you're at the doctor and he says, you have fatty liver disease. Oh, my God. Well, it is terrible, but you can fix that. You can reverse that. Just as Dr. Dean Ornish showed that you can reverse heart disease and reverse the plaquing in the arteries over time by a more plant-based diet. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but a more plant-based diet. The cool thing is the more you apply yourself to it, the better, the stronger the outcome on that. And I'm waiting to see a study on that. And I would look to Dr. Ornish or Dr. Katz or one of these guys. Dr. McDougall's doing some great research. And maybe one of those guys are going to come out and show, if you do a slightly better plant-based diet or you do a full plant-based diet, these are the outcomes that you can expect. I can tell you from seeing my patients, and this is anecdotal or clinical evidence. It's not a double-blind study, which is the gold standard, but I think it counts for a lot. My patients who put the most effort into the dietary improvement and fixing their habits do the best by far. Their blood work improves far better than people that come in and try to snow me and tell me, well, I've been eating really healthy, and then and there's things in their diet diary that just don't really make sense, and they're cheating here and there. I mean, that's I know it's human nature, and I try to help people get past that. I don't criticize anybody, but that's slowing that healing process down. The liver is resilient, and the liver can be rejuvenated and restored, but you have to make substantial effort. You have to take away the cause of that congestion in the liver, of that fatty buildup, and that cause is things like sugar in your diet, even baked goods that are sweetened, any kind of artificial sweeteners and things, medications, those all interfere with the liver's ability to work because all those things get filtered through the liver. Alcohol intake, regular alcohol intake, whatever they tell you, a glass of wine a day is okay, that is a burden on your liver. I promise you. Because the body looks at alcohol just like sugar. And that's how it's handled. And so, when your liver takes a sugar load into it, it converts it to triglycerides and basically floats that in your blood. And it's either going to end up around some of your organs or in your hips or in your belly or in your face and neck. And, it's going to contribute to the fat deposits on your body. That is stored energy. That's the purpose for that whole process. Unfortunately, Americans never seem to use that stored energy. We always just store more and more and more, and that's how we get heavier and heavier and heavier, and that's why the obesity rates are so high, and that's why the overweight rates are tremendously high. And think about that, 70% of Americans are overweight. That's an unbelievable number, and we need to work at that. We really do, because it's a major contributor to disease. Not so much the weight itself necessarily, maybe, but the physiological changes it causes in our body, because all of that extra weight needs nourishment. It all needs circulation to keep it in a healthful state. You can't just deposit fat and leave it alone. It's going to cause problems. Those cells will die. That fat may rot and become rancid, and you can get things like cysts and tumors that result from that. And so, the fat needs circulation. That for every pound of fat you have, it takes about 7 miles of extra circulation, microcirculation, to keep that fat in a healthy state, a relatively healthy state. That's a lot of extra burden on your heart and lungs. So if you consider the fact that the average American can have 30 to 50 pounds of fat on their body. If you got 50 pounds of fat on your body, that's a lot of energy that's stored. That takes a lot of support. That's 350 miles of extra circulation that the blood has to travel through to keep that nourished and keep it healthy. And that robs the rest of the body of that good nourishment, that good oxygen supply, because that's extra work the body has to do, and that decreases the body's ability to supply your other organs and your brain with oxygen. So let's think about that. We have so many problems that are coming on in the way of Alzheimer's and different cognitive disorders and Parkinson's, different neurological issues. Part of that may be because the body has a hard time keeping up with all the work it has to do. So, let's try to look at the overall picture and think about, how we can help our liver to work better. And the way we do that is, like I talk about in my book, Perfect Cholesterol in Just 3 Weeks Without Drugs. That's the diet that I wrote to lower my cholesterol when I found out my cholesterol was high, and it worked great. It always works great. Everybody that uses it finds that it works great. Even people with familial hypercholesterolemia, or you get the genetic problem with cholesterol, it still lowers cholesterol because it's not all genetic. It has to do with putting saturated animal fats into your body at a level that your liver can handle, and your cholesterol rises. So when you do a diet like in my book, that cholesterol comes down naturally because you're pulling the rug out from under cholesterol production. And that's what makes the big change. But you have to stick with it then, too, to keep that cholesterol low. You can get that book, my book, Perfect Cholesterol in Just 3 Weeks Without Drugs, on my website. And if you go to drvitkohealth.com, you'll find that on there, and you'll find a lot of great information that I provide. And there's also a lot of all of my shows, all the radio shows. So everything you've heard on the radio, my interviews with Dr. Katz and Dr. McDougall and, all these other guys that I've had on here, Dr. Merkin, Jamie Brinkus, the exercise guy, and, Mark Huberman from the National Health Association. There's a wealth of information in my podcast. You can listen to all those for free anytime. Just go to drvitkohealth.com, and I'm adding to that website every week, and I try to put high-quality information on. You'll see articles that I wrote from my point of view, and I've been told that I have a good way of getting the message across in a way that people understand it, and that's my goal. I'm a blue-collar guy, and I like everyone to have the opportunity to improve their health. I'm also a nuts and bolts guy. I learned how to fix things. That's the heritage my dad gave me. He was a guy that could fix anything. And it sounds crazy, but that's what I learned from working with him in the garage. How to sit back and look at it and think things through and figure out the answer. So in the second half of the show, I want to get some phone calls from you folks that are paying high prices for prescription drugs, which really only cover up the problem. And that's what I'm going to go into in the second half here, especially with cholesterol and statins. Really just covers up the problem, doesn't fix anything. So in the second half of the show, our number here is 729-9977. That's 729-9977, and hopefully we'll hear from you. It's Dr. David Vitko. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health. We'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
All right. Thanks for hanging in there, folks, and we're going to get back into the meat of the material right here. No pun intended. But you may hear my ad that my wife Denise does for me in the show when she talks about the backtrack and my book and all. And, I put the backtrack on the back burner. It's a great tool for back pain, but it's just so labor-intensive. I build them all myself still, and I've had to put that on the back burner for a while. I'm working on this book. I've told you before that I'm a kind of a fix-it kind of guy. I like to look for the cause of the problem, and I like to really get into the nuts and bolts, and figure out why something is happening that shouldn't be happening. And I like to fix it. And, I look at America's diet and how we got so far off track in the way we eat and our understanding of how food affects health. It's ridiculous. It is totally absurd with the scientific knowledge we have right now that we can't fix that. And honestly, I believe the thing that's in the way is money. I think that there are too many people making too much money off our sickness, and because of that, things don't get changed because money talks. Let's face it. If somebody came in here to the radio station and offered, 10 times what I pay for airtime, I'm going to get bounced probably eventually. And, so it's not no criticism of the radio station, but that's the way it works everywhere. Money talks. And so things get changed around because of money. And honestly, with the our direction that healthcare is headed in this country, it's more and more and more about business. It's more and more about profits and less about getting people truly well. So to get truly well, it really comes down to your efforts. If you're waiting for your medical doctor or your osteopathy, your DO or MD, or even your chiropractor or naturopath, well, naturopath and chiropractor may be a little better chance, but if you're looking for them to show you how to be infinitely healthy and maybe not need their services somewhere down the line, that'll be few and far in between, I'm telling you, because, there's, number one, not all doctors understand this, how powerful diet is. And number two, basically you're telling them to cut their own services to do that. And I don't know too many people around that'll do that. It's just tough. I mean, everybody's trying to earn a buck. And then there's the system, the machine that is in place. And to interfere with that machine is to bring the wrath of those at the top down on you. And I think we see that in the federal government right now. There's, it can be changed, but it's a painful process. And the pain is much deeper than you even could imagine, I'm sure. And so changing the healthcare machine is going to be a challenge. That's my goal. My goal is to change healthcare in the whole. And I want to be a part of that. There are doctors who are working in that direction now. And that's part of the focus of this next book that I'm writing, and I'm very deep into it. But I want to highlight these people. But the problem with that, too, is, just like my show here, I can function in relative anonymity. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm a flea on the hind end of a giant dog. So far, they don't even know who I am. But, if I start to make waves, I'm going to attract that attention, too, and take some abuse for that. It's a shame that that's the way it is, but money rules. And so you have to understand where the message is coming from. I'm going to give you everything I can, as honestly as I can and as straightforward as I can, without letting that interfere. And you notice I don't advertise for myself much. I give you a little blurb here and there. Look, call my office if you want an appointment. I could spend the whole show advertising for myself. That's not what it's about. If we're going to change, we've all got to change our attitude. And we've all got to be able to see through the facade of what's there, just like our government. If you can't see through what's going on, it might not look quite right to you right now, and you might be rooting for the wrong side. But you need to make sure you understand there are people who deeply care about our country, and there are people like me who deeply care about your health and really want to change things. And that's my goal before I die. I want to see some kind of vast improvement in healthcare, and I think it can happen. So, I have a really strong appreciation for the amazing skills of our medical professionals. Now, you're going to go, well, you were just saying how these guys are all part of the machine. They are. There's no debating that. And it's not saying that they're not bad people. They're good people. Every doctor I've known and every nurse I've known and every healthcare, professional, they all care about our health, but they have blinders on. And it's up to us to help take those blinders off. And that's what I do with my patients who improve their health just through diet. And I get medical doctors all the time going, that's an interesting result. Now I don't have all these double-blind studies that are the gold standard for some reason, which frankly, I think clinical research and what doctors' results they get in their offices are far more important than all of these research studies taken together, because now we can see how it works in the real world, and we can figure out how to make it work for everybody. So, but we have to gradually take the blinders off of doctors and have them see the light, if you want to look at it that way, and understand the power that all this has to right the ship. Yep, someday there's going to be less jobs for doctors. No getting around that. If what I want takes a hold, and guys like Dr. Katz and Dr. McDougall and, all these guys, Dr. Merkin, that's, in a roundabout way, that's what they want. Now, some of them won't come out and say exactly that, but that's where we're headed. We could use less medical doctors if everybody was far healthier. If everybody ate the way I'm suggesting, we could do with a fourth of the medical doctors we have out there. And just think of the savings in cost on that. Excuse me. So I know all this sounds contradictory, but hear me out on it. We have to respect and appreciate the great medical care that we have, because most of the people that I know are not healthy enough to ever say, "Adios, doc. I can take care of myself." I've done that for years, but I also have a good friend who's a medical doctor who I rely on for information and guidance sometimes. Now, I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty autonomous on this. I can do my own thing, and I feel very comfortable with it, and I understand the ins and outs of what I'm doing. But I've paid the price along the way in figuring all this out. I'm trying to give you this information to save you that suffering. So modern medicine is great for saving us from early death. They're even good through prescription medications sometimes to help us feel better with chronic diseases like diabetes, arthritis, psoriasis, gout, heart disease, and other annoying diseases that give us uncomfortable symptoms and make life miserable. Yeah, those prescription drugs sometimes help. They also have a dark side. Well, a couple of dark sides. One is the cost, and that's why I was talking to you earlier about, look, if you want to call in and talk about the cost of prescription meds, I'd love to hear that conversation. Our number is 729-9977. That's 330-729-9977. Call in and let's talk about prescription meds, about the cost and about the side effects of them. I know some of you have some stories. I know it. And, most people aren't going to listen to it, but I hear it all the time, and it makes me cringe. And we're overprescribed in this country, and we're over-medicated, and maybe we could do away with a lot of that. I know we can do away with a lot of that if we, go ahead and work with the meds that your doctor wants you to take, and go ahead and use that as a crutch. But work on your diet in the meantime, and if you need to lose weight through a good diet, and you watch your health blossom. And you may get to the point, like a lot of my patients do, to where their doctor gleefully tells them, you don't need this medication anymore. Wouldn't that be phenomenal? And you have no idea how close you might be to that. It sometimes doesn't take as much effort as you think. And everybody thinks it's some monumental task. It really is not. And you don't have to be a rocket science. Count on your doctor to help you through. You're on a better diet, you lose weight, you start feeling a little lightheaded or dizzy sometimes because you're on a blood pressure medication and your blood pressure is coming down naturally on top of it. You might need to get that adjusted, and that's where you talk to your doctor about it. I'm sure they'd be happy to work with you. Just make sure they know what you're doing. That improved diet does wonders. But prescription drugs, yeah, they work as a great crutch sometimes, and they can help us feel better. But if you rely on that as your sole means of health, like, for instance, with cholesterol, if you take statins to lower your cholesterol, I saw a study in the National Institutes of Health that talked specifically about the fact, was in the National Library of Medicine online. It was funded through the National Institutes of Health, so there really wasn't any money behind it other than our money or grant money. But so it's, I think, a pretty honest study, and it talked about the fact that people on statins, people on prescription cholesterol-lowering medication, tend not to eat as healthfully because they think the problem is fixed. Oh, I don't have to worry about eating meat and cheese and dairy products and sugar because I'm on a statin and that keeps my cholesterol low. As if that's like the answer to everything. And these people still go on to suffer heart attacks and die. statins are no guarantee that you're not going to have a heart attack. I don't know if your doctor clued you in on that. I read somewhere that it's about 0.1% of people that actually get the benefit of not having a heart attack because they take statins, because there are many other things involved. Cholesterol is only part of the ugly picture of our blood health that grows out of eating the wrong foods regularly. Cholesterol is only a part of that. And if all you do is lower cholesterol, you're only touching a part of the problem. And so you've still got these other issues going on. And if you think that, like some of these people do, actually it was the majority of the people in the study, if you think that because you're taking cholesterol-lowering medication, you can eat bacon every morning and, bologna sandwich for lunch and beef roast for dinner, I got news for you. You're going to die early, and you might end up getting Alzheimer's or high blood pressure, or you might end up with high triglycerides. You're going to end up with some plaquing in the arteries. All these things. Cholesterol medication is not a free pass. It should be a crutch to lean on while you do what we know now is the most powerful approach to lowering cholesterol, and that is to eat a diet that promotes lower cholesterol and promotes a healthier, better functioning liver and decreases your chance of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and, decreases your chance of rheumatoid arthritis and diabetes. Did you know that animal fats are largely thought to be heavily involved in type 2 diabetes? Because these fats tend to coat our blood cells and other cells in the body and block the place where insulin attaches to lower blood sugar. There is an effect that comes from animal fats that is a huge part of that whole picture. And my patients that get off the animal fats and eat a more plant-based diet, a healthy plant-based diet, vegetables, heavy into vegetables, fruits, melons, nuts, seeds, berries, whole grains, those people see natural decreases in blood sugar. I've seen patients' blood sugar come down several hundred points just in a week or two, just by changing their diet. And, even for type 1 diabetics, whose insulin production is decreased, there's a great benefit to that. If you can keep your blood sugar lower naturally with the right foods and you need less insulin, you're going to live longer and healthier. It's statistically well known. So, I don't know what it takes for me to nudge you folks in the right direction and you have to get started. You can't, listening to me every week is a great start. If you listen to my podcast regularly, I'll start to get in your head. It's like when Mo Ray comes in here after the show. He's always like, I was going to go through the drive-thru, and then I heard this little voice in my head, and it was yours. So I love that effect on people. If I have that effect on you, that's what I live for, because I'm showing you the way to be healthier, and I know I can have a tremendous effect on your health in that way. That's my self-talk. I hear my own voice in my head, which is scary, but I hear my own voice in my head telling me, do this, don't do that. And that self-talk is very important. When it's based on fact and it's based on good information, it's going to steer you in the right direction. So next time you go through a drive-thru and you have this little guy on your shoulder whispering in your ear, maybe you shouldn't do that. That's probably me. And that makes me very happy. So I'd love to hear more from some of you other folks like that. Sometimes I hear from Mo in the morning, and I greatly appreciate that. That means I'm reaching people. So don't think that statins will fix your cholesterol problem, folks, and don't take that as license to eat whatever you want, because it doesn't work. This is an ongoing process. You have to work at it month after month, week after week, day after day. It has to be a regular process. So I'll take 1 minute, just tell you a little bit about what I do in my practice to help patients get on track. So we've been able to help a lot of people lower their cholesterol, triglycerides, gain control of their blood sugar, reduce blood pressure. But you have to get started. If you want to come in and sit down for a consult, my number is 482-9550, and Denise will get you set up to come in, and it doesn't cost much, and it's well worth it. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health. We just have a few minutes left. After the break, we'll be back and continue.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
All right. So we just have a few minutes here, and I want to finish up by giving you a couple tidbits of information. I have the quote of the day, which I've been kind of missing because we've had guests and things like that. And by the way, next week I'm scheduled to have Dr. David Katz on. Dr. Katz is the head of preventative medicine at Yale, or preventative health at Yale University. And if you remember, I had him on the show in the past. He is a fantastic speaker, and the guy has very cohesive thoughts and gets it across very well for a guy that's that educated. And it's just a joy to interview him, and I'm looking forward to it. I occasionally email him and read his articles all the time. And so I do enjoy Dr. Katz. In many ways, he's from a different world than me. You know, I'm a Midwest guy, grew up basically in my dad's garage and learned how to be a good mechanic, and that helped me how to learn to be a good doctor, I think, because it helped me to think logically. And he grew up in a whole different environment, and a Yale guy and all that stuff. But it's kind of fun to have those things mesh. I love interviewing Dr. Katz. I read his material. I depend on his books for a lot of good, valid information. And so Truth About Food is the big one that he wrote that I really enjoy. So the quote of the day: time and health are two precious assets that we don't recognize and appreciate until they've become depleted. Yeah, doesn't that make sense? Time and health are two precious assets that we don't recognize and appreciate until they've been depleted. And that's by Dennis Waitley, who, if you're not familiar with Dennis Waitley, I've read and listened to his audio recordings, a ton of them. And he is an American motivational speaker, writer, and consultant. And he's written several best-selling audio series, The Psychology of Winning, Seeds of Greatness, The Winning Edge. You know, Waitley he's been inducted in the International Speakers Hall of Fame. He's a brilliant guy. He actually was born in San Diego, California, it says here. His mother was a factory worker, and his father worked in a warehouse. I love those roots. And he actually ended up graduating from the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis and became a naval aviator after graduation. And he went on to a stellar career in public speaking and in just helping us all to be better people, more effective speakers. And so I do appreciate Dennis Waitley. So the other thing I want to do is I want to promote a book. And it is the new book by Dean Ornish and Ann Ornish. You hear me talk about Dr. Dean Ornish all the time, I know. It's called Undo It. And I think it's a good book. I've got my copy coming tomorrow, and I can't wait to dive into it. This is Dr. David Vitko. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health. And please come back next week, and let's talk some more. Next week, we'll have Dr. Katz.